300 hours. Base fire alarm. Everyone evacuated except me. I was on duty in the classified documents room. That's when I heard footsteps above in General Morrison's office. He'd been dead for 6 hours. I climbed the stairs, found Colonel Hayes and Major Thompson shredding papers. "Just cleaning up Morrison's mess," Hayes said, too casually. But I'd already seen the mess, the suicide note they didn't know existed, the one that named them both. "Corporal Bennett," Hayes noticed my expression. "You look troubled." Morrison's. Death hit us all hard. His hand moved to his sidearm. Some soldiers can't handle the truth. They make poor decisions. Fatal ones. The shredder kept running, destroying evidence. Evidence I had copies of, hidden in my barracks. Welcome to the channel where military justice meets deadly conspiracy. Hit subscribe for a story of murder disguised as suicide. Let me tell you how 12 officers killed a general to hide there. Crimes. My name is Corporal James Bennett, 25 years old, stationed at Fort Liberty, North Carolina. For 2 years, I was aide to General Thomas Morrison, commander of the 82nd Airborne Division. The old man was a legend. Vietnam, Desert Storm, Iraq, Afghanistan. 4 Purple Hearts, 2 Silver Stars, more commendations than his office wall could hold. Soldiers would die for him because he'd die for them. That's why they killed him. General Morrison ran a tight ship but cared about his people. Every morning, 0500 sharp, he'd be at PT with the troops. Not watching, participating. 63 years old, could still outrun half the division. Evenings, he'd walk the barracks, checking on soldiers. New names, families, problems. Leadership is personal, he'd say. Made enemies among officers who preferred distance from enlisted. I became his aide by accident. Previous aide got deployed. I was temporary replacement. Had a gift for organization, attention to detail. Morrison kept me. "You see things others miss, Bennett," he told me. Taught me more about leadership in 2 years than a lifetime of military schools could. Also taught me to recognize corruption. Power corrupts, Bennett. Even here. Especially here. The changes started in January 2024. Morrison became withdrawn. Angry. Meetings behind closed doors with JAG officers. Late nights reviewing files marked eyes only. Phone calls that ended with thrown coffee cups. "Goddamn criminals," he'd mutter. Started locking his office, even from me. First time in 2 years. Something big was happening. February brought the confrontations. Colonel Hayes, deputy commander, arguing with Morrison daily. Major Thompson from intelligence, Major Rodriguez from logistics, others. Always the same officers. Always behind closed doors. Always leaving Morrison furious. They think the uniform makes them untouchable, he said once. Started seeing the base chaplain more. Not for spiritual guidance, for confession. Preparing for something. March 15th, 2024. Morrison called me to his office after hours. Locked door, blinds drawn. On his desk, stacks of documents, photos, USB drives. "Bennett, I need you to understand something. What I'm about to show you could get us both killed." My blood chilled. Morrison didn't exaggerate. Ever. The documents detailed 12 years of systematic corruption. Operation Blackwater. Hayes authorized the killing of 3 Afghan witnesses who saw you soldiers execute civilians. Operation Tombstone. Friendly fire. Accidents, eliminating soldiers who asked questions. Operation Payday. $50 million in reconstruction funds diverted to private accounts. Each document signed, verified, irrefutable. It goes higher than Fort Liberty, Morrison explained. Pentagon, State Department, contractors. A network of officers getting rich on blood money. Photos showed Hayes meeting with Taliban commanders. Not fighting them, paying them. Protection money for supply routes. Let convoys through for a price. American soldiers died on routes that should have been safe. The worst was Operation Silent Night, December 2019. An entire Afghan village eliminated because they witnessed a drug deal between U.S. officers and local warlords. 43 civilians, including children. Official report: Taliban attack. Reality: Apache helicopters with U.S. crews. Morrison had flight logs, communication records. Even helmet cam footage Thompson thought was destroyed. Why now? I asked. Morrison's hands shook. I'd never seen that. They want me to sign off on a new operation. Operation Crimson. Assassination of a D agent who's investigating military drug trafficking. I won't do it. Can't. Line has to be drawn somewhere. He'd been collecting evidence for years, waiting. Now they'd pushed too far. Morrison created 3 copies of everything. One for the FBI, one for the media, one for insurance. If something happens to me, Bennett, you know what to do. Gave me contacts, journalists, federal agents, senators he trusted. Few, but enough. Don't trust military channels. They're compromised. Go civilian. Go public. The pressure intensified. Hayes visited daily, sometimes with others. Reconsider your position, General. Veiled threats became explicit. Accidents happen. Training exercises go wrong. Even generals aren't immune. Morrison recorded everything. Small device in his pen, another in his metal display. Old spy tricks from Vietnam. Every threat documented. March 20th. Morrison's car had brake problems. Mechanic found cut lines. March 22nd, food poisoning from the officers' club. Only Morrison. Affected. March 25th. His quarters were burglarized while he was at a briefing. Nothing stolen, but message clear. We can get to you anywhere. Morrison moved into his office, sleeping on the couch. I stayed too, unauthorized but unchallenged. He started writing the confession. Not suicide note. Confession. 12 pages. Handwritten, detailing every crime he'd discovered. Named names, dates, amounts. His own guilt, too. Things he'd overlooked. Times he'd stayed silent. I'm complicit through inaction, he wrote. But no more. Sealed it in an envelope addressed to me. My insurance policy, he said. Final meeting was scheduled for March 28th, 2100 hours. Hayes, Thompson, Rodriguez, and others. Last chance to reconsider, Hayes had said. Morrison prepared like for combat. Updated his will. Called his daughter. In California, visited the base chaplain one last time. Gave me the envelope. If I don't walk out of that meeting, Bennett, burn this place down. Figuratively speaking, I wasn't supposed to be there. Orders to report to Motorpool for inventory. Obvious busy work to get me away. Ignored it. Stayed in classified documents room in the basement, directly below Morrison's office. Could hear everything through the old building's thin floors. Recorded it all on my phone. 2100. Meeting began. 5 officers entered Morrison's office. Hayes, Thompson, Rodriguez, Major Williams from Personnel, Captain Chun from Finance. The corruption. Committee. Morrison calm, determined. Gentlemen, my position hasn't changed. I won't sign. More importantly, I've documented everything. Insurance, you might say. Hayes exploded. You stupid old fool. You think you're untouchable? You think your rank protects you? Morrison's response. I think the truth protects me. $50 million, Hayes. How many soldiers died for your bank account? The argument escalated. Furniture moving, voices rising. Then silence. Too sudden. Too complete. 2,147. Single gunshot. My blood froze. Waited 5 minutes. Longest of my life. Then footsteps. Rapid conversation. Make it look right. Suicide. PTSD from combat stress. Thompson's voice. What about the documents? Hayes. Toss the place. Find everything. Bennett might know something. Handle him later. I should have charged upstairs. Should have called MPs. Instead, I followed training, documented, recorded, survived to testify, heard them staging the scene, moving furniture, placing the body. Rope, not gun. More believable for suicide. Monsters discussing murder like logistics. My mentor, my general, reduced to a problem requiring solution, that 2300. They left. I waited another hour, then triggered fire alarm. Provided excuse to go upstairs. Check on the general. Found what they'd staged. Morrison hanging, chair placed. Aside, typed suicide note on his computer. Professional job, except for details only I'd notice. Wrong knot, defensive wounds on hands they'd missed in the dark. Grammatical errors Morrison would never make. 300. Fire alarm cleared. Building empty except for duty personnel. Heard the shredder running upstairs. Hayes and Thompson had returned, destroying documents. Climbed the stairs, made myself known. Wanted to see their faces, gauge their guilt. Hayes barely hesitated. Bennett, unfortunate about Morrison. Stress of command, you understand. Played dumb. Grieving aide. I can't believe he's gone, sir. Hayes relaxed slightly. Yes, tragic. We're just cleaning up, securing classified materials. Standard procedure. The shredder kept running. Years of evidence becoming confetti. Thompson sweating despite the cool night. You should get some rest, Corporal. Tomorrow will be difficult. Hayes stepped closer. Morrison was troubled lately. Said strange things. Did he share anything with you? Documents, perhaps? We need to secure all classified materials. Hand resting on his sidearm. Threat clear. No, sir. The general kept me out of his personal affairs recently. Partial truth. Hayes studied my face. Good. Best to forget whatever you might have heard. Grief can make people imagine things. Left them to their destruction. Returned to barracks. Retrieved Morrison's confession from my hiding spot. Also grabbed the USB drives I'd copied earlier. The recordings from tonight. Everything. Morrison taught me well. Always have backups. Changed into civilian clothes. Packed light. Knew they'd come for me once they realized Morrison's real confession was missing. 500. Base waking up. News spreading. General Morrison commits suicide. Official story already crafted. I slipped off base before they locked it down. Drove to Charlotte, rented a motel room under a fake name. Spent the day organizing evidence, preparing packages. One for the FBI, one for the Washington Post, one for Senator Martinez, the only politician Morrison trusted. March 29th, afternoon. Posted the first package. FBI Field Office, Charlotte. Walked in personally. Demanded to speak to someone about military corruption and murder. Agent Sarah Chun, no relation to Captain Chun. Young, eager, took me seriously. Especially after I played the recording of the murder being planned. Her face went white. This is Jesus Christ. By evening, FBI had taken over. Safe house protection. Detail formal statements. Showed them everything. Morrison's confession, the operation files, recordings. More agents arrived, including military liaisons who looked sick as they reviewed evidence. 12 years, one muttered. How did no one notice? Because no one wanted to notice. Morrison noticed. Died for it, March 30th. Washington Post broke. The story. General suicide under investigation. Careful wording, but enough. Fort Liberty locked down. Hayes, Thompson, Rodriguez arrested by federal agents. MPs not trusted, too many compromised. Watching the news, saw Hayes in handcuffs. No smirk now. Thompson crying. Reality of federal murder charges sinking in. More arrests followed. The network unraveled fast. Captain Chun flipped immediately, providing financial records. Major Williams tried to run, caught at the airport. Dozen more officers implicated. Some committed actual suicide rather than face trial. Ironic justice. Morrison's death accomplished what his life couldn't, exposed them all. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records showed $50 million stolen over 12 years. Operational files detailed 17 murders, disguised as combat casualties or accidents. The Afghan village massacre video leaked online. Public outrage exploded. Military families demanding answers about suspicious deaths. Congress launched investigations. Pentagon in crisis mode. October 2024. Federal Courthouse. Washington, D.C., United States v. Hayes et al. Biggest military corruption trial since Vietnam. I was prosecution's star witness. 12 days of testimony. Every document explained, every recording played. Defense tried to discredit me. Disgruntled enlisted man with delusions. Hard to maintain when I produced Morrison's handwritten confession. Hayes broke on day 15. Pled guilty to avoid death penalty. Detailed the entire network in exchange for life without parole. Threw everyone under the bus. Thompson got 40 years. Rodriguez 35. Lower-ranking conspirators got 10 to 20. Captain Chun, who flipped early, got 5 years. Light, but his testimony was crucial. The Afghan village massacre became international incident. President apologized publicly. Reparations paid. Military justice reformed. Morrison posthumously awarded Medal of Honor for extraordinary moral courage in exposing corruption at the highest levels. His daughter accepted it, thanked me personally. You saved his legacy. No, he saved it himself. I just delivered the message. Media circus lasted months. Book deals, movie offers, interview requests. Turned them all down. Testified at congressional hearings about military corruption. Reforms implemented. Independent oversight, whistleblower protections, financial. Auditing. Morrison reforms, they called them. He would have hated the attention, but loved the results. Personal cost was high. Death threats from conspiracy supporters. Traitor, spray-painted on my car. Quietly discharged from Army. Honorable, but message. Clear. Military doesn't like boats rocked, even righteously. Didn't matter. Morrison taught me leadership means doing right, not easy. Kept his confession framed on my wall. Daily reminder. 2 years later. Working civilian job. Teaching high. School history. Use Morrison's story as lesson about moral courage. Some think I'm hero. Not true. Hero was the 63-year-old general who chose truth over life. I was just the messenger who survived to deliver it. Still get updates from FBI Agent Chun. Investigation continues expanding. International connections, contractor involvement, political implications. 100 arrests so far. Morrison's evidence was the stone that started avalanche. Every corrupt officer scrambling to make deals. The network he exposed ran deeper than even he knew. Visit Morrison's grave monthly. Arlington National Cemetery, Section 60. Full military honors despite the murder. Family insisted on truth. Murdered for refusing to commit war crimes. Headstone simple. He chose honor. Leave his favorite cigars. Update him on convictions. Sounds crazy, but feels necessary. The dead deserve to know their sacrifice mattered. Hayes. Writes from prison sometimes. Claims innocence, then threatens, then begs. Don't read them anymore. Thompson found religion, apparently. Rodriguez maintains silence. Others scattered across federal system. Model prisoners mostly. Amazing how well soldiers follow rules when consequences are real. Morrison would find that ironically satisfying. The reform continues. Every suspicious military death now investigated independently. Financial audits automatic. Whistleblower protections expanded. Not perfect, system never is, but better. Morrison's death created changes decades of committees couldn't. Sometimes tragedy succeeds where bureaucracy fails. Cold comfort, but comfort nonetheless. Asterisk, my name is James Bennett. Former corporal, former aide to a murdered general. Current teacher, permanent keeper of dangerous truths. I learned that honor isn't about following orders. It's about knowing when not to. That loyalty isn't blind obedience. It's protecting what's right, even from those wearing the same uniform. General Morrison died because he wouldn't sign a murder order. Killed by officers who forgot their oaths. But his death exposed them all. The confession they didn't know existed. The evidence they couldn't find. The aid they underestimated. Morrison knew he might die. Prepared for it. Made sure truth would survive him. They thought killing him would end their problems. Instead, it began their destruction. Every crime documented, every conspirator named, every dollar tracked. Morrison spent years building the case. His murder provided the final evidence, themselves on tape planning it. Arrogance was their downfall. That, and one corporal who chose truth over safety. To those in uniform. Question illegal orders. Document. Corruption. Protect evidence. The system has channels, but also has corruption. Trust carefully. Act boldly. Morrison proved one person can make a difference. Also proved that difference might cost everything. Be prepared for both. To the families. Of the 17 soldiers murdered by this network, Morrison didn't forget them. Every name in his files. Every death investigated. Justice came late, but came hard. Your loved ones didn't die in vain. They were murdered for profit. Now their killers rot in cells. Morrison made sure of that. The shredder in Morrison's office. Ran all night, but truth survived in a corporal's barracks. Hayes thought he was destroying evidence. He was creating it, himself destroying documents after a murder. I had copies of everything. Morrison taught me well. Always have backups. Bennett. Truth needs redundancy. They killed a general to hide their crimes. Inspired a corporal to expose them all. That's Morrison's real legacy. Not the medal, not the reforms, but the lesson. One person with courage can bring down an empire of corruption, even if it costs everything. Especially then, General Thomas Morrison, 1961 to 2024, murdered for refusing to murder. His confession saved lives, exposed truth, reformed a system. They thought they were silencing him. Instead, they made him eternal. The fire alarm at 0300 wasn't random. Morrison pulled it from beyond. Gave me excuse to find him, start the avalanche. I believe that. Have to. Otherwise, it's just meaningless death in a world of meaningless deaths. Morrison deserves better. He got better. His killers in chains, his truth in history. That's all. That's everything. That's enough.